I was hoping I wouldn't have to take the lead until about mile 40 or 45. And, you never know what happens in these races.
So, like, were you surprised to see that? You seem pretty stoked crossing the finish line, but was that always kind of the goal in the back of your head?
But in the 100K, I've noticed, like, being able to just sustain, like, 400 calories an hour or whatever it is for the person, you can just hold, like, such a higher power output. Yeah, there's just, like, a lot of unknowns because, like, high carb is obviously, it's a huge leap forward in our sport. And I found that's pretty helpful just to be able to keep doing it day after day after day.
A couple weeks ago, you ran Gorge 100k, and on Instagram, you said it's one of the most tactical races you've ever been a part of. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so I'd say it was tactical for ultra, just because I've never been in a 100K that didn't necessarily just have someone go out pretty aggressively and be a aggressive pace early on. We ran in a pack of guys that it was a big pack early on, but we were in a pack almost probably 5 to 7 or 8 guys up until about mile 25, and I thought that was great. I mean, Gorge for me, I want to do this race for a long time, especially since Free Trail's been putting so much energy into it. It seems like it's just a great event. I can drive there from Missoula, and this year it was the qualifier for the world's long course team. It was the selection for that. So with all that in mind, I do have Western States at the end of June. And so my goal was I was hoping I could do well at Gorge do well enough to get a world spot, but not totally destroy myself before States. And so going into it, I knew that I didn't really want it, but I thought like in an ideal scenario, that would be my goal. And so yeah, to have it go out pretty tactically and chill like that, the first 25 miles was perfect for me.
Yeah, it was interesting to watch, like being there, like the course is, I think it's, people kind of think of it as like, okay, it's really easy running, but like I went out there and ran parts of the course and like everything's like, at least the parts I was on were like fairly wet and rocky.
Yeah.
But you guys still ran a pretty solid pace. And there's actually a fair amount of climbing too. Like there was more than I thought there was going to be out there.
I felt the same way. I looked at a couple people's like Strava files and GPX files from the race, and the race website said that it had 11,000 feet of climbing. And I was just kind of piecing this course together, and I was like, there's no way. Like, I don't see where the climbing is. Like, there's one climb that's maybe 1,500 feet and a few others that are 500 feet. But it definitely adds up over time. I mean, you're kind of contouring the Columbia like on a big side hill for a lot of it. And I think it just adds up to a lot of little up and downs. But yeah, you're right. Like that course, the trail's pretty narrow, the first 38 miles for the most part. And I think that kind of led to why no one really made a big move. Like it was just really hard to pass people, and especially during like that out and back section where you're like the front runners it's two-way traffic with some of the slower runners. There was just no need to really be making big moves or not. No one was trying to make anyone fall off the trail, nothing like that. So no, I thought it was great. I think that was a great lesson for me in patience, and it led to us actually having like a pretty big finish the last 25 miles or so.
Yeah, definitely. It was interesting to see like you guys all be like kind of packed up at the beginning and then seeing it kind of spread out where it was you and then like these next 3 or 4 guys. And like, it was really cool to see. Cause like on one hand, it was like, okay, it's fast, but it's also like, yeah, there isn't a lot of room to move around there. It's like, you have like slippery rock or slippery pavement even. And then it's like, okay, there's like a cliff right there, basically. It was interesting.
Yeah, totally. There's definitely a few spots where you don't want to catch a toe. And
Yeah.
that surprised me, but it was funny too. Like I felt like there were, I think it was like 5 or 6 or 7 of us in that group until about mile 25. But it wasn't just like the guy leading wasn't going really hard either. I felt like all of us were just running this moderate pace, and like even at one point I tripped and fell like in the mud, and everyone just stopped for me, and I was like, keep going.
It's almost like you're out on a group run.
Yeah, it felt like I was on a group run, which I thought was pretty fun. I mean, a few of those guys in that group I know from other races and stuff. So, man, it sure made it made the miles go by quickly, and yeah, I enjoyed it for those first 25 miles for sure.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so you're saying though you didn't want to go out too hard because you wanted to like save yourself for states, which is coming up relatively soon. But you
Yeah,
also ran sub 8, which was faster than Walmsley's time out there and Vincent Bouillard, how do you say his last name? I don't speak French, so I apologize.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
these two like very fast guys that have had records out there, and you ran sub 8. So like, were you surprised to see that? You seemed pretty stoked crossing the finish line, but was that always kind of the goal in the back of your head?
I didn't have a time goal going into this. I guess the conditions were perfect. You know, it was. I don't think it got above 50 degrees that day, and it hadn't been raining. And so, like I said, I did slip in the mud, but honestly, that was like the only spot that was very muddy, and I managed to trip and fall. But yeah, the surface was great, like pretty packed dirt the whole time and great temperature. So I think that was a big contributor. I do think when Vincent ran his course record, I think it was quite a bit muddier and maybe even colder. I mean, it looked like it was pretty drizzly that day. Um, and then as far as Jim's course record, I don't know. I mean, the course was quite a bit different back in 2017. That was
Mm-hmm.
like pre that big fire that ran through that gorge. So I don't know. I mean, I do know I got like some Strava segment I ran was faster than what Jim did, but for me that was like mile 40 to 50, and for his race I don't even, that might have been like mile 20 to 30. So it's hard to say, but I do think the biggest contributor would be the level of competition. I just think having that qualifier be on the line brought a great field of guys, and yeah, that mixed with great conditions. I think the top 4 or 5 men were under the men's course record, and then I think the top 3 or 4 women were under the women's old course record. So overall, just a fast day, and like I didn't expect that time, nor really have that time going in, their time goal going into the race.
Yeah, that's interesting because it was crazy to see like top 5 men go under, then like 3 or 4 women go into their course record as well, and like Shea Alcalano just like crushed it out there, and like it was wild. It was so fun to watch and see that go down, and like it just makes me think about how fast the sport is getting. Where it's like years ago it was still like fast in some regard, but like now it's just like it just seems like exponentially faster. Like every race you go to, and like not that like
Yeah,
Gorge is a B level race by any means, but like canyons and like Black Canyon just course records dropping all the time because they attract people for golden tickets, and you see the same thing at Gorge for the qualifying. And it's crazy. Like it's just so cool to see the sport getting faster and like in a lot of ways like more professional, and like how people like
mhm.
approach an event where it's like I'm not just going to show up and just kind of wing it. It's like no, this is my goal race, and like everything's kind of like catered specifically. Where before, like when I started running, for example, it's kind of like yeah, 50k is a 50k, and you just kind of like run it and don't think twice about like tactics or nutrition or
Yeah,
anything.
yeah, totally. I feel the same way. Like my first ultra was in 2021, and you know at that point people were taking it very seriously, and um, yeah, but I just feel like what's really changed over the last couple of years would be probably the level of competition has gotten higher. Like I think a lot of people share what they're doing online on Instagram and Strava, and so you know there's a lot of athletes who share all their training on Strava, and so if you have the means, you can try that out and plug and play it on yourself. But I think the biggest thing in ultras is probably the nutrition component. I think we've just seen people are moving up in their carbs per hour, to a point where you can just sustain an effort for such a longer amount of time. And I especially noticed that in 100k. Like in a 50k, I feel like sometimes you can get away with not hitting a high carb per hour, um, fueling plan, and maybe you don't bonk, or maybe you just bonk right at the end. But in the 100k, I've noticed like being able to just sustain like 400 calories an hour or whatever it is for the person, you can just hold like such a higher power output. Like like for me, CCC in 2024 was the first race that I really dialed my nutrition. I feel like, and hit 100 grams of carbs an hour because I'd been working on it all summer and felt like I had a good plan. And yeah, like that was awesome. I felt like I was able to just push like such a higher heart rate and put out higher power for almost 8.5 hours of a 10.5 hour race. And yeah, I just think it was because I had so much fuel on board. Like you were just able to just keep going, and I feel like that's what's happening is like people aren't really dying like they did during these races, or just like falling off their pace like they used to.
Yeah, definitely. Like fueling properly just kind of let you go to the end. And so, like, when you ran states though, or one states, like, what was your feeling like then versus now? Like, have you changed things dramatically? And like, because it's obviously it's a 100 miler versus like 100k, but like, what was your
I
feeling like then and now?
I would say I try to be more dialed. I mean, I don't know what I ate at States. I couldn't tell you what my I wasn't even on the carbs plan. Like I was still counting calories. Um, no, States was crazy. So I've always been someone who I would aim for 300 to 400 calories an hour. That was kind of my goal back in 2021 and 2022. So it's not like low low carb, like that's great. But the problem was I felt like I would have this plan and then it would always fall apart. Uh, so like at States, I I think I was hitting like 300 and some calories an hour for the first 40 miles, and then my stomach just started hurting. Like I couldn't take my drink mix anymore. It was making my stomach really upset. And I was only 40 miles in, and my like quads were starting to cramp. And I'm thinking like, all right, well this is really bad. I have about 100k to go, and I remember I went from like third place to seventh over the course of like a couple miles. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to like change something or else I'm going to do really bad today. And so at one of the aid stations, I realized looking back, I think my drink mix was just way too strong and I wasn't really taking it on anymore. And so one of the aid stations, I just started taking what they had. And so at States, that's Goo Octane. And I happened to have a bunch of Mott's energy chews, like not Mott's fruit snacks in my pocket. I had
Like
a
those
ton.
ones from the grocery store, just the little like,
Yeah, I had
yeah.
that. My Nikki belt was loaded with those things. And it was crazy. Like I started taking Roctane and taking Mott's, and within it was at El Dorado Creek, I think, and then up the climb up to Devil's Thumb, and within that climb, I like went from seventh to second place and felt so much better the rest of the day. So I guess all that being said is like I don't know what I did that day for fueling because I don't know how many Mott's uh, energy packets I ate. But yeah, I found that that's what I needed to do. Just take on more water, dilute the drink mix, and eat those chews. Um, so now I try to have like these plan A and plan B and plan C options. Um, but a lot of it's based off of what I learned during those years. Like a lot of these times in races, I'll start. I'm with Scratch, is my new nutrition partner, and they've been really great to work with this year. And um, in 2021 and 2022, I worked with them a little bit as well, more informally. And yeah, it's just been super helpful to have them because I can tell them what happened, and they're like, "Yeah, your drink mix was like too concentrated. Like you have to dial it back, start taking chews, maybe take just gels and water." And yeah, I think just learning all this stuff has been helpful, just to make it so I don't have like as big of low moments. And yeah, hopefully be able to hit more 100 gram of carb per hour days, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And like I went to TRE last fall and spoke with I'm spacing her name right now, but she does some like marketing stuff for Scratch. I think it was Taylor. Maybe I don't remember.
Okay.
But we were talking a lot about like just like sodium concentration and carbs per hour and just kind of like changing like your nutrition strategy based off of what you're doing. Where if it's a colder event, you might have to like take in more like solid foods just because maybe you're moving slower, or simply because like it's harder to drink that much. Where if it's hotter, like say Western states, you could just like guzzle fluid the whole time and like do high carb that way. So like, is
Yeah.
that kind of interesting to you to like? Okay, like this is my strategy for like say Gorge is gonna be so different than say like Worlds or States or even CCC or something.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. Like I remember before States in 2022, I met with one of the researchers at University of Montana in the human performance lab, and I just wanted to talk to him about like my nutrition strategy. And I was like, so I'm like planning on putting 100 grams of carbs in my bottle and just going with that as long as I can. And he was like, dude, you'll poop your pants. I promise you. And I'm like, no, no way. And he's like, no. And he explained it all. He explained how like it gets hot and your your blood gets like allocated more to your like extremities to cool you down, and your gut isn't getting as much blood flow. And after that, I was like, oh geez, like I guess maybe I shouldn't aim for 400 calories per bottle. Like maybe it is quite a bit less. And uh, yeah, just I'm glad I talked to him because it is really different what you have to do when it's cold and hot. And I feel that way for sure. Like, in the winter here in Montana, I spend a lot of time Nordic skiing and doing some uphill skiing stuff. And yeah, I can eat anything. You eat sandwiches, cheese, whatever. And then as it gets warmer, your intensity goes up. Like you just start trending towards like that hummingbird food where it's just sugar
Yeah.
and only sugar, gels and drink mix and chews. That's like, yeah, it's funny. And then you have to dial it back too. So yeah, it's always a learning process.
Yeah, I think that's like a really interesting thing about the like high carb, like in the past couple of years, anyways, is like everyone's trying to do more carbs, more carbs, more carbs, whether you're pro or like amateur. But like some people just jump right into it and like I'm gonna do 90 or 100 an hour, and it's like that's so much to do instantly without like kind of training your gut for it. And then you throw in like the heat factor, the intensity factor, and it's like suddenly 90 an hour is like really difficult. Whereas if you're just sitting on the couch, it's like yeah, whatever.
Oh yeah, so true. I mean, I'm curious at states is like what people will do and how they'll react to the temperature. And yeah, there's just like a lot of unknowns because like high carb is obviously it's a huge, huge leap forward in our sport that cycling has known about for a long time and other endurance sports have known about for a long time. But when it's hot, you have to adjust. I mean, I feel like we saw so many people in the World Championships in Ironman in Hawaii, and like they try to do high carb and they're just they're throwing up on the bike, and that's biking. Like biking's a lot easier to digest than running. And so, yeah, that's probably like the thing I'm most stressed out about at States is just making sure that the nutrition is on point and that you don't overdo it because, you want to hit these numbers per hour, but if it's not going in, you got to be careful because when you throw up, it's like, it might not end your day, but it's like a big reset.
Yeah, definitely totally empty your stomach and start at square one again, right?
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah, and it was interesting. Like last year at States, like I asked top 10 men and women for the most part, all the women, but like what they did for carbs per hour, and like most people were like around 90 to 100. There were a couple outliers there, but
Yeah,
then like a lot of people also had a lot of like nausea, and I had to like kind of have a
yeah,
plan B, and it was really interesting because like I've seen a lot of these guys like do like 90 to 100, like in a 50k or 100k, but then you throw in the extra distance, but then also the heat and probably the intensity at States and probably nerves too because it States,
yeah.
and it's like that just all kind of like comes together and can cause some GI issues.
Oh, totally. Like, yeah, even during Gorge, I have a bin full of all my gels right now, and so I need to crunch the numbers of what I actually consumed, but I would guess I was probably like 100 grams of carbs an hour, maybe a little more. Like, if it was more, it probably would have been about 105. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but like I said, I was taking Scratch Super Fuel or high carb drink mix for the first 4 hours, along with some gels. So Scratch, they don't make a gel right now, and so I'm taking uh, other brands gel. I'm taking Carbs Fuel or Precision, sometimes SIS, and it's interesting because I took that high carb for the first half of the race, and then you can tell like I can tell that I need more water.
Mm-hmm.
And so then as the race went on, I transitioned to gels and water and then choose from scratch. And that was the ticket. And so it'll be interesting to debrief this with Scratch before states and hopefully build out a plan where it's like, all right, maybe we shouldn't take high carb at 100 grams of carbs an hour. Maybe we should do a little less so you can just keep taking this sustainably versus, 50K into this race, you stop and move on to choose. It'd be better to have like this consistent energy. But yeah, it's an interesting puzzle. And it's funny that like it's so individualized, and even as the race progresses, it's like sometimes you just have to stop taking your drink mix, and yeah, but I guess it gives you hope too when you start feeling bad. You're like, well, maybe it's not that I'm tired or slow. Like maybe it's just I need to tweak something I'm eating.
Yeah, either or that or your hydration or like salt or
Yeah,
something too, right?
I'm pretty lucky too. I got a sweat test recently, and my sodium concentration is pretty low, so
Really?
I'm
What is
pretty
it?
lucky in
Just
that regard. But my fiance Erin, hers was like the highest I've ever heard of, and
really?
it just made so much sense. Like she's had quite a few races when it's hot, where all these weird like cramping and nausea symptoms, and now we know that it was just her sodium had gotten way too low.
Dude, it's so interesting that like because I heard about the test from Hayden and then and Jeff Browning. And like for a long time I just kind of discounted it. I'm like I'm getting enough sodium. Like I drink sodium. I drink a lot when I run. But then like I was always having cramping issues as well. And then like once I got that test done, it was just like night and day difference. So like spending like a
Yeah,
couple $100 like is like the greatest investment I think for running, even as a recreational runner, because like you just have better days and it like makes running so much more fun. And you recover
seriously.
faster and like it's so worth it.
Yeah, I feel like that's another part of it that I didn't mention. I think that yeah, like if people are hitting their carbs per hour and their sodium needs, it's like if you check that box and make it happen, you just won't fatigue like you did before. Yeah, so um, that's why I think I was just lucky that mine was so low because
Mm.
essentially my sodium is just getting replaced by taking almost any product there is. Yeah, so that was pretty lucky for me, I guess.
Yeah, like I'm super jealous that you didn't have to think about it because it was like an
Yeah,
issue for
no,
me.
I never had to think about it.
That's funny. So how did like I'm assuming you're doing some high carb like training sessions as well. Like have you been incorporating high carb in training and like have you seen gains in training that have then played out in races? I know you've been injured, so it's like hard to
Yeah,
maybe answer that question appropriately, but like have your training sessions been better and then you see those like kind of pay off at Gorge?
yeah, I think so for sure. So I usually try in the last few months. I've been trying to do about 100 grams of carbs an hour. Any run that I do that's like over 2 hours. If it's less than 2 hours, I might bring a gel or something. And if it's less than 90 minutes, I don't usually bring anything just because it's like a easy day. Um, but yeah, I've definitely noticed two things. Like during those longer runs, I feel better. Your energy just doesn't go down as much. And then I think the biggest benefit for training is like I'm not just really hungry when you're done. Like your energy is still pretty good. You go home, eat food or make a shake or whatever, and you take that, but you're not like really depleted feeling. And I found that's pretty helpful just to be able to keep doing it day after day after day. That's I think kind of the mark that I missed in 2023 when I did get that sacral stress fracture. It had to be a fueling issue. Um, Even though I was eating like a ton throughout the day, I think I was just kind of missing the mark and not taking in enough fuel during my running, or I was biking a lot back then too. And I think I was just getting pretty depleted and not really catching up. So yeah, like putting in 100 grams of carbs an hour day after day on these training sessions, and then finishing with like a shake or a meal right away. I just feel like you don't feel so tired the next day. And compounding that day after day is, I thought was pretty helpful. And it was cool too. Like I weigh myself just to make sure I'm not like losing weight, like as these training blocks go on. And this was the first time I've been able to do like a 6 week training block, and I hardly lost any weight. And so to me, I'm like, sweet, this is great. I'm like, I think this is actually working this time. So yeah, I've thought it to be really helpful.
Oh, it's super interesting. And like if you think about it, like, if you're gonna do like a 2 to 3 hour run, then you say you're gonna ride a couple hours or something later in the day, like that's like 5 hours of the day. If you're not fueling during that, it's like five less hours to eat. Then you factor in sleep. It's like your
Yeah,
window to eat is like so small, and you can only eat so much at one time. So like adding in an
yeah,
extra essentially 500 or 700 more calories while you're
yeah.
working out, like it makes sense.
Right, because even like if I look back on when I had that injury, like
Mm-hmm.
there were never days where I was like really hungry all the time or anything like that. But I do think if I was a few hundred calories short every single day for like a few months, that's going to compound and eventually lead to some injury like that. And so, yeah, totally. Like just getting a few hundred extra calories a day can certainly make a difference. And it's just different. Like I feel like the way people are training, or the way I'm training, I guess, for these races is, I come from a track and field background, and that's just, I don't. That's probably how people should eat in track and field, if they're training a really high volume. But it's just not like the culture of that sport,
Mhm.
and it's more like I've hung out with some Nordic skiers and triathletes, and to see how they eat is like that's probably how an ultra runner should be eating as well. And it's just quite a bit different. I mean, like some days it feels like I'm eating like a linebacker, and yeah, it's just quite a bit different than running for University of Colorado back in the day.
Yeah, and if you think about it, it's like all those hours, and like then you compound that with like your basal metabolic rate, which is like staying alive. It's like you need a
Yeah,
lot of food, and it's like it's a lot of effort, and everything else people are doing every day, like as an athlete, like yeah, it all adds up for sure.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, that's I feel like I learned a lot from that injury, and not to say, I mean, those injuries happen, and maybe it wasn't related to fueling at all. So, but I think the best thing I can do going forward is just really focusing on like not dipping into the negative in terms of calories like day after day like that. Um, but also running is a pretty high impact sport, so you're not ever just like free of getting any of these injuries, which is unfortunate side of the sport for sure.
Yeah, I definitely always kind of riding that line, but like, it
Hmm.
makes sense though, like as like an n equals one, just like personal experiment. Like if you're feeling better and you're just like, okay, you're not injured, it's like yeah, like you should be doing that. And like I do feel like most people probably underfuel quite a bit, or just don't even eat like enough real food,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that can contribute as well.
yeah, totally. Like so through Scratch, we get to work with a nutritionist once a month, and she was like, she asked me to track what I'm eating for 3 days and then send it to her just as like a baseline.
Hmm.
And I feel like those 3 days I did like an amazing job of fueling enough. And I was training a lot then. It was in the winter, so it was kind of like a big base phase. And after she crunched the numbers of what I ate, she's like, "Yeah, you eat like 5 or 6,000 calories a day." And I was like, "Sweet, like, is that okay?" She's like, "Yeah, just keep it up." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like how I'm gonna keep doing this?" But I think I'm still on the right path. I mean, I'm not now. It's not that base phase anymore, so I'm training a little less. But it was a like good lesson for me, where I was like, "All right, well, I got to stick to that then if I want to keep training like this at this level."
Yeah, definitely, it totally makes sense. It's cool you have that opportunity to like work with a nutritionist to like just kind of keep you on track and like whatever in the right direction, because it's easy sometimes just like fall off, like, you get busy or whatever, and
Oh,
uh,
totally.
yeah.
Yeah, totally. I'm pretty lucky. Like I have a part time job outside of running, but it's only like 10 hours a week, and so I have all the time
Mhm.
in the world to like make sure I get enough food. But
Yeah.
oh, if you were working a full time job and running like this, it's like that'd be tough. You'd have to be pretty dialed with meal prep or just bite the bullet and go out to eat a lot.
Sounds terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, just because I'm like recently I've been really into caffeine, like just not like into caffeine, but like just like the science behind caffeine. Like obviously like most people use it for racing and stuff, but like do you utilize caffeine? And if so, like kind of how'd you do that at Gorge?
Yeah, I do use caffeine during races. A little bit during training, but not a ton. I mean, I'll drink coffee in the morning, and then sometimes I'll take like a caffeinated gel before I have to do like a big workout or something like that, or a hill climb just to get motivated. Um, but yeah, I think at Gorge I think I had 1,000 milligrams of caffeine, so it's a lot. I had about that much at CCC. It's a ton. I mean, yeah, but I think it's helpful as well. Like it just keeps you focused, and uh, I don't know. I think it's been helps with performance, but I ended up just taking like whether it's maybe like SIS nootropics gel or like one of those precision caffeinated gels, and then like I said, I think Scratch is planning to start developing a gel within the next year, and so I don't know if I can't speak to if they have caffeine or not, but that would definitely be a good ad because yeah, it helps quite a bit.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's interesting how like some people are kind of for whatever reason like against it. Maybe it's just like an internet thing where like oh, caffeine's bad for you, whatever. I'm not going to use it. I'm like, if you're not using caffeine, you're like leaving gains on the table, and like you're going to run faster with caffeine. It's kind of proven science.
Oh, seriously? Yeah, like, it's
Yeah.
pretty funny. Back in and this was when I was in college, but my dad runs quite a bit, and he doesn't drink coffee, and he like started he I think he got a bunch of those Cliff caffeinated gels. They have 100 milligrams of caffeine. It's like a chocolate gel, but he discovered these things and started taking them on his runs. And then he would send me a video from like the top of Mount Jumbo, which is this little little mountain outside of Missoula that he always runs up. But he'd be like, "I take the caffeine and I just am light on my feet. I run faster than ever." He was like an infomercial for caffeine, and it was so funny because he was like in his mind the first man that ever discovered caffeine, but it truly like he found it to be like this huge performance bonus. And I guess I took like 7 years to adapt, but or to adopt it. But yeah, my dad's been harping on caffeine and the benefits of it for years, and uh, he'll still take those gels like even if he's not running. Like he works in the ER and he'll like slam one right before a shift just to get focused.
That sounds terrible to take a caffeinated gel before anything besides running, honestly.
I know. I'm like, Dad, just drink coffee like the rest of us.
Yeah, drink coffee, even just have some caffeine pills or something. It sounds way better than a
Oh, he'll do
gel.
that. Yep, he'll do that
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. So speaking of your dad, I guess like maybe he's like been involved in your running for a while, but like crewing like kind of relates, I guess. That was probably a terrible segue there, but like just crewing at Gorge was so fast. Like it was cool to be there filming and to see like how quick the transitions were, where a lot of them were just not even a stop. It was just kind of like touch and go at most.
Yeah.
Like, has your crewing evolved over the past few years? I know you've had a very successful like few years of running, but like
Mhm.
have you had to get faster and kind of optimize your crewing experience just to like kind of keep up with everybody?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, and I was surprised at that at Gorge too, because I was wearing a belt and had a handheld, and I thought I'd be like one of the faster people at the aid stations, but uh, yeah, at the mile 33 aid station, Trayson and I were running together, and then he just did a bottle swap, didn't even stop, and that he put like 30 seconds onto me there, and it took me like probably like 45 minutes to catch back up. And he put on a big surge right there too. But yeah, it just goes to show like that's free speed. If you can nail those aid stations. But I do think I've always like tried to be pretty quick through aid stations. But I think that is something now that people are taking advantage of and practicing. Like you saw it at states last year, like Rod Farvard, he just crushed it, and uh, he him and Jim kept yo-yoing back and forth because I think at the aid stations Jim was like taking more time, taking care of himself, and changing his shoes or some other equipment, and then Rod was just doing a vest swap. And it's interesting to think of like maybe that's why Jim beat him because he took a little more time and was able to feel fresher. But yeah, it's hard. It's hard to think of that strategy and figure it out. Like, what's that going to look like at states this year? Are people going to do vest swaps, or are some people going to be sitting down in a chair and changing their shoes? Yeah, there's a lot of variables, but I think it's definitely something you gotta practice and pay attention to.
Yeah, like from a I don't know, like a spectator standpoint in media too. Like it's really fun to watch. Like even like at Gorge Shea Akalana who won the women's race, like she's young, but she's taking things like fast. Like when she ran well, like the entire day, but also like her vest swaps, like she ran with a vest, were just like I'm assuming it was her parents. I'm not really sure
Yeah,
honestly, but like she was just kind of like run through and like put the vest on as she ran, and it was cool to see like that fast of a transition because like I'm a belt guy personally, but like to see
yeah,
that, I'm like that's actually really cool. Like to see that like, and they obviously had practiced it. It wasn't just like okay, let's kind of figure this out on the fly. It was like no, this is dialed, and I think we're just
hmm
going to see more and more of that. Like as you're saying, like states will be another like kind of like on the big screen example of like how fast people are going to get at crewing, but then it's also you got to take care of yourself. You don't want to like run through too fast
right.
and like fall apart later on.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, like when I ran states in 2022, I took pride. I never sat down, and never gone to chair or anything like that. But then at the same time, like I never changed my shoes or I didn't even think of any of those things. And like I know I ended up having a great day and ended up winning the race, but I do think back and wonder. It's like, well, like maybe it would have been better if I did a few of these things, or maybe if I wore a vest and swapped it out and had that vest be full of ice. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think a lot of people have different tactics, but yeah, I mean, I'm pretty lucky too. Like a buddy of mine who lives in Santa Barbara, I've known him for about 5 years. But he's a great dude, really detail oriented, and he loves to come out and help me crew at these races, and it's been super helpful because like I think just the week of the race he'll come out and we'll kind of talk things over, and he just like writes down all the details of what the aid stations might look like, what we might need, anything that I didn't think of, and it's been really helpful to have him at some of these big races. So he crewed me at CCC this last year, Canyons the year before, and then States in 2022. And yeah, that's been, I think, really integral for me, like not feeling as stressed out before the races, and then having this like successful crew day. Is my friend Evan. He's been super helpful with that.
That's cool. Is he a runner himself, or is he just really into like logistics and planning?
He's yeah, he's more of a cyclist and a soccer player, but
Okay.
he runs sometimes. Like he's a really fit guy. But yeah, just crushes it with logistics and planning.
That's cool. Like it's interesting, like what you're saying, like just what you just said, and then like thinking about Gorge, where like just like okay, you stop for 30 seconds, like that's okay. Now it's kind of becoming like a big deal, like in the sport. You got to run a little bit harder to catch up. Where maybe like 10 years ago, like 30 seconds was like
Oh
whatever,
yeah,
not a big deal.
maybe no
But
problem.
yeah, like the
Yeah,
margins
that
are
was
getting so
really
thin.
like that. At that point in the race, I was Trace and I were leading at mile 33, and I'd say I felt pretty good. And then I just took some time because I had all this trash in my naked belt, and mile 33 was where I was planning on putting everything back in, like restocking for the rest of the race. And then Trayson just blew by me, and all he did was like take two bottles and keep going. And I think he must have felt really good then because at that point in the race, like he probably was 30 seconds ahead of me, and I felt like I was going pretty fast. Quite a bit faster than we had been going about an hour before, and I just couldn't catch up to him. And I think that coincided. You have highs and lows, and I think for me
Yeah.
that kind of coincided with a little bit of a low point. And at mile 38, I remember he came through the aid station. I could see him, but part of me was like, "Oh, geez, like he's moving so well. Like, at what point am I going to catch up to him again?" And you have all those negative thoughts, and it's like it just comes with the territory. And fortunately, I was able to catch him again at mile 40, but he really capitalized on that aid station maneuver. Like he put 20 seconds into me there, and then just sped up. And yeah, that was like another reason I mentioned it was so tactical because I feel like him and I just had that hour long section where we kind of traded leads.
Yeah, no, it's super interesting. So as we kind of like start to wrap up here, I know you're gonna go ride here in a minute, but like now that like I guess you were injured was it last year, right? Now you're kind of coming back. Like you had one
Yeah, the
race
year
before
before.
Gorge. Okay.
Yeah,
So like was being back now, like I guess not being back now, but like having run Gorge and having ran so well and having things click really well is like is that a huge confidence builder for you as like the season starts to play out?
I would say like so. Yeah, I got hurt in 2023, and then
Mm-hmm.
I had to take a lot of time off for that, and a lot of 2024, like I just could tell I just wasn't as strong like aerobically. And it was frustrating because I just had to be really patient with this injury, and like I I wanted to train more, but I kind of just had to be pretty patient with it. And I would say starting around like CCC last year, getting third there was a big confidence booster. And then I did try to get the rim to rim to rim FKT, and
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately that didn't go very well. But I did feel like that training block, I was back to the fitness I'd had before, like the same fitness I might have had in 2022. But unfortunately, it just didn't pan out on that day at rim to rim to rim. So yeah, having a good day at Gorge was a confidence booster. Like I felt like I'd been at that level now for the last, I guess, 4 months or 5 months, but it was cool to like make it happen. Because I haven't won big race in a long time, and so it was cool to make it happen and feel like for the most part I was in like control, and ended up running a fast time. But yeah, the states field is loaded. It's gonna be really fun, and I'm super stoked to be a part of it.
Yeah, man, as you should be. Like I'm so pumped to see it all play out this year. Like I feel like there's 10 guys that could potentially win, and like everyone's fit, everyone's healthy for the most part. Like it's gonna be rad. It's gonna be so fun to watch.
Yeah, no, I'm pumped that it's just like happened this way. It's crazy too because
Mhm.
I'm sure I've mentioned this before, but I my assistant coach in high school was Mike Foote, who was a pro runner for the North Face back in. He still is, but some of his best races were at UTMB in like the early 2010s or mid 2010s. But anyway, he was my assistant coach in high school, and I think it was 2011 or 2012. Unbreakable, the documentary came out, and Mike he rented out this local theater in town that holds hundreds of people, and he played Unbreakable, and then he hosted Hal Kerner, Anton Kabrishka, and Jeff Rose, and so he showed the movie, and then they were all on stage for like a Q&A panel discussion. And so I was in high school watching this, and I remember I was like, this is insane. And I ran cross country and stuff, and I'd run some longer trail runs, but nothing over 20 miles. And I remember I was like, God, these guys are, this is just crazy. And I remember I never was like, I'm going to do this. But I remember meeting those guys and thinking how cool it was. And it's cool now to see that it's come, 15 years later, and they're talking about making Unbreakable too. And I guess now I'm now I'm here and I will be in there.
Yeah, it's pretty wild to think about that. Like however many years ago, like you were watching that as a high school student and just kind of like, hey, these guys are insane, and here you are, like
Yeah,
having won the biggest race like in the states and going back and like now gonna be a part of it again. Like that's really cool.
it's really cool, and it's funny because like at the time I didn't think it influenced me. I just
Hmm.
remember I was like, wow, these guys are just wild.
Yeah.
I would never do that, and then here you are. So
It's funny how life plays out and how just like I don't know, just one little experience, maybe in the moment you don't think twice about it, and like, especially as a kid, and then you
yeah,
grow up, and then like now here you are. Like it's cool. It's really cool to
yeah,
see.
yeah. But no, it should be super fun. I think I'm I'm pretty excited, and like yeah, definitely a lot of confidence after Gorge, and then I felt like the timing was good too. Like I took a week, I took last week off of running, which was felt a little weird, with states being about I guess yeah 8 or 9 weeks away, but
Hmm.
I think it was the move, and now I'm excited to just slowly get back into it and start the next training block in a couple weeks.
Nice, man. Well, I'm stoked that you're feeling good and healthy and had a good race at Gorge, and I'm excited to see how things play out in Auburn this year. It's gonna be
Yeah,
cool.
thanks so much. Will you be at States?
Yeah, I'll be out there filming, so I'll see you out there for sure.
Cool. I'll try to say hi this time. Sorry I didn't see you, George.
If you don't say hi, I won't blame you. You'll be in the midst of it all, so it's all good.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Well, thanks for having me on.